Lisa?
Okay, I think we're ready to go. First thing we wanted to do is introduce ourselves, and my name is Lisa Heaton. I'm a faculty member at Marshall University, and I teach instructional technology courses. And each of us will go ahead and introduce ourselves now.
Hey, hi, I'm McKenzie Brittain. I'm a faculty member also at Marshall University, and I teach courses in the math programs, specifically working with the Elementary Mathematics Specialist Program and the Math through Algebra 1 program.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly McFall, and I'm the Program Director for Curriculum and Instruction, and also am the Program Coordinator for School Library Media. I'm also a faculty member at Marshall, and would also like to take this moment to say we have just put our EDS and EDD programs online for curriculum and instruction, so you can reach out to any of us towards the end of this session if you have any interest in coming to Marshall.
And my name is Tina Allen. I coordinate the MAT program at Marshall and teach classes within the MAT program.
And thank you all for being with us today. This slide just gives you a little bit of an overview of our presentation topics. We are going to take turns as presenters and share some information with you about apps. And I'm going to start by talking about some apps that we've discovered through our research with teachers, through surveys about their favorite apps, and also by visiting classrooms in the public schools. Of course, a lot of this happened pre-COVID. It's been a little bit difficult to do that kind of activity currently. But after I talk some about some of the apps, share several apps with you, I'm going to kind of focus more specifically on some strategies for using the photos and videos feature of your device, and also talk about some augmented reality apps. And then McKenzie's going to talk about ThemeLink and Desmos, and Kim is going to share some details about Puppet Pals and talk about the screen recording aspect of iOS devices. And Tina is going to share some strategies and ideas for Flipgrid and Padlet. So as we're getting started, there are a lot of apps that we've been able to observe P12 students and teachers using in their classrooms. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you a QR code, and we'll display this QR code again at the end of the presentation. So if you don't have a device handy to scan it now, maybe you can get that ready before we get there. So I'll say a few words while this QR code is on screen. So the QR code is going to give you access to 57 iOS apps that fall into a wide range of categories like 3D printing, augmented reality, classroom management, several others. I won't name them all. But all the apps that we're going to talk about in today's session and demonstrate today are included there, along with a lot of other apps that we won't have time to mention by name. But that QR code will give you access to the list of them. We've included them for iOS and also for Google devices if it's available in both platforms, just in case you saw awesome apps and not the emphasis that we were going to have on iPad. So again, we'll display this code. We'll repeat it at the end of the session in case you didn't get to scan it just now. So next, I'd like to talk about some research that we did with surveying teachers in the public schools, and we had 188 teachers give us ideas, sharing favorite apps, many of them sharing multiple apps, and that included actually 345 apps that we kind of categorized into broader categories. And I want to share some of the ones that people mentioned more than 10 times each. And they include things that fall into the learning management categories, learning management systems, I should say, like Schoology and Seesaw, apps for assessment like Kahoot, Quizzes, and Quizlet. Also apps that are Apple specific, like Apple Classroom, Keynote, Pages, iMovie, and Notes. Google apps are also popular with teachers who use iPads, and that's as simple as things like search, but also specifically Docs and Slides, and Google Drive for file sharing, and even applications like Google Earth. Basic skills applications like STMath and iReady are also really popular because they allow students to practice reading and math skills. And coding sites like code.org, along with apps like Tinker, Scratch, Vex Robotics, and Spritebox coding are also popular and were mentioned by a lot of the teachers who completed our survey. So all of those would be great to check out if you haven't used some of those before. And now I'm going to move on to talking more specifically about some of the apps that I want to feature. And one of those is the Photos app that comes pre-installed on your device. There's a lot of potential for using photos and videos for students to document learning and task completion. And I think some examples are worth mentioning because one of the concerns I hear a lot from teachers is about the amount of time students are spending on their devices looking at their screens. And I think using the photos and videos aspects, you can have students doing more hands-on learning types of experiences, but just use the device to help document and serve as proof of those. So I want to show you a few examples. Here's a science example. The photo shows that the student was able to complete a circuit, demonstrate that the sequence works. Hopefully you can see a finger, that's me, pushing a button and a light is on, so all that's documented in the photo. And the teacher can quickly see that the experiment was successfully completed, and the student was able to do all that work off the device and then just take a photo at the end, again, to document that work. So with something as simple as the Photos app, students can, again, I'll repeat, work off screen and offline on creative and tactile projects. And then just use that device to prove that successful completion. So here's another example. It's a math example. It shows that the student successfully used a compass to bisect an angle, captured the photo documenting their work, and then that could be airdropped to the teacher in the classroom or even submitted online using a learning management system like Seesaw or Schoology. And my third example, now you all know I played with Legos this weekend, so I could capture that. But this example might look like it was just for fun, but and that's okay. Sometimes just for fun is okay. But that creation could also be used to simulate storytelling or creative writing. And along with this image, the student could submit some written work that tells a story about what's pictured there. It could be creative writing, or they could record a narration to go with it that could be help them practice public speaking related to the English language arts curriculum. So shifting over to some video examples, video can also be a great way for students to document their work. For example, a student might be asked, the question here is, can you see sound waves? And here the student, if we watch the video, let's take a look and see if the student showed us whether we can see sound waves. So I'll pause it there, and hopefully if you're looking at the strings, you can see their different widths, and you can see as those strings are plucked, they are showing different wavelengths. You can see sometimes they're closer together or further apart depending on the pitch of that string. And I'm sorry if I'm not using the right science vocabulary because science wasn't my field, but hopefully you get the idea that there are some creative ways that students can show their work. And again, in this case, that students outside, they're using a real tactile musical instrument, and they're demonstrating some knowledge just by using that video recording. So in this next example, I want to go ahead and play it while I talk. Groups of students here are collaborating and competing to build the tallest tower. And this is using a time-lapse video feature on the photo tool in the iPad. And it allows you to capture the whole process in fast motion. You can see their efforts, you can see the failures, and you can see the end result. It's something that the teacher could watch. It plays very quickly, and the teacher could see that the team was working together. There were multiple hands in the picture, and you can see that progress. And of course, the teacher could see all the finished products that might be in the classroom, but the video would allow the teacher to really see the whole thing from start to finish very quickly, and allowing the students to show their progress and work once again. So in this last video, I'm going to show you a slow-mo, short for slow motion video. And it's another recording option that's available through the video features on the camera app. And let's take a look at that video, and I'll say a few things about it while it plays. So this project's capturing a video, again, that students outside exploring the world, in this case, trying to maybe document related to science, how butterflies support the pollination process, going from bloom to bloom and moving around, but it's captured in slow motion and allows you to see more detail of what's going on. Butterflies actually can move pretty quickly if you catch it watch it at regular speed. But then the student, along with the video, could submit a supplemental report on the topic and have the video to document as a live real example of that. So it's not a theoretical concept. The students are getting to do a lot of interaction with their environment to show that these things do occur in the real world. And again, just like the photos that you saw earlier, these projects, video projects, could also be submitted through apps like Seesaw or Schoology, or airdropped if you're in the regular classroom. So I'm going to shift now and talk about, I'm so sorry, my phone's ringing. Okay, I'm going to suffer for that later. I apologize. I just hung up on a friend that I haven't heard from in 20 years. Okay, so I'm going to shift gears to talk about Quiver, which is an app that allows students to experience augmented reality. Quiver allows you to turn coloring pages into an augmented reality adventure using the iPad and using the app. It scans the image and then augments the page into sort of a 3D animation that kind of pops off the page. And I'd kind of compare that to the old school pop-up book. Open the page and it pops up. But in this case, it's a bit more interactive than just popping up or standing up on a piece of paper. The app also allows the students to do video recording and narration as they interact with the augmented reality. And I'll show you an example in just a few seconds here. But let me show you how you interface with Quiver. You can actually use the app or the website, and the website is quivervision.com, to locate and download coloring pages. And from quivervision.com, you just click on the coloring packs link that's in the top right corner, and that will then give you access to a variety of what they call education packs. And you might notice here that some of the categories are marked free, while others are for subscribers and paid only. Once you select a particular pack, and I've only used the free ones, but this is an example, you can select the pack you want, and then you can view and download a specific picture. One caution I would say is that some pages are free to print and free to augment. Some are free to print so kids can color with them, but it costs to augment them. So that is something that you want to keep in mind. It's a good idea to print a page and then check it with the app to make sure you can animate it without it asking for you to pay before you print a set of pages for all the students in your class and then tell them we're going to augment this, and then find out the hard way that it can't be augmented without paying. So here's a sample that shows some printed pages that gives you some idea of the types of coloring page options that are available. And starting at the top left corner, there are some science options like cell structures, volcanoes, and there are different animals. Here you can see an example of turtles. Then there are also examples that are holiday related, and those change based on season, like Halloween and Christmas are a couple of topics. There are also some other content specific things like social studies might work well with the Earth Day picture and the world map option. And then there are some others that might work well for English class, like the book week. Even the boy playing the basketball, playing with the basketball could be good for storytelling, and the train could also be something good that students could use related to storytelling. So here's an example of my awesome coloring, but mostly to show you that you do color these with regular crayons. Colored pencils and markers work as well. It doesn't have to be anything special. There's a QR code at the bottom of each picture, and that's how it does the augmentation. So in the upcoming video, you're going to see how this color truck gets augmented in the picture. And the augmented features include the ability to change the road from paved to gravel. There's a horn you can honk. It can also change from day to night. You can turn on headlights. So you have multiple opportunities for the student to interact and make things happen, along with the ability to record and narrate a creative story. And depending on the type of page, it might be creative writing kind of thing related to English language arts, or it might be content related, like if it's the plant cells, they might be talking more specifically about the structures that make up a cell and so forth. So the class that I observed using this app was an elementary class, and once the students finished their coloring, they used their iPads to narrate their stories, and then they were asked to upload those to Seesaw. And I'll let you see an example in me telling a story that's really fast and really kind of bad. But here you go, so you can see what it's like.
Didn't think we were ever going to get there. The road got really bad along the way. It even turned night. I was getting a little bit scared. There was a deer ahead of us that ran out in the middle of the road. My dad had to honk the horn several times. Boy, was I glad when that trip was over.
So you can see that's how it works, and all the recording is done within the app, and then that recording gets saved to your photo collection. So I'm going to mention, we were on a really, don't want to see that more than once. Sorry about that. I'm going to mention a couple more apps more briefly, and then we'll turn things over to McKenzie here in just a couple, like 4 more slides, I think. But another augmented reality app I'd like to share with you is called Jigspace. And it provides content in the categories that you see on screen, like machine science, how-to, space, and history. And within the science category, there are actually several there that would also work well with health. And what you also see in the pictures is just a sample of the kinds of jigs, that's what they call them, that are available. And let's take a look at another video so I can share with you some of the types of features that Jigspace has built into it, hopefully. Sorry about that. So once you selected the jig that you want to use, it gives you the opportunity to place that on a flat surface. And here you can see me placing this Mars Insight on a table. You can walk around using your iPad as a viewer. You can move closer to it so you can look at certain aspects more carefully, including the underneath as well, which you can see here. You can also, again, using your iPad screen, tap on different elements that are part of whatever particular jig you're looking at, and it'll give you the names of each one so you can learn more about the related features and vocabulary of the jig. And then there's also the arrows on the right. There's also a built-in curriculum that students can work through. So these existing jigs already have some content to help students learn more. You can also use the pinch and squeeze method to make it bigger or smaller, and you can close it and then relaunch it in a different location if you want to move it to the floor or move it to a chair or anything like that. So they're pretty easy to interact with. So I'll mention one more app, and that's Google Arts and Culture. It used to be Google Expeditions, if you've heard of that before. And Google Arts and Culture includes video and 3D visuals, images, and virtual reality experiences. And I'll just quickly show the examples. that you can see different topics like museums and art and culture and so much more. So I am going to stop sharing my screen so McKenzie can move on to share hers.
You have a question in the chat if you don't mind answering that.
Okay. I'll just answer it in chat so McKenzie can go ahead and get started.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Lisa. So I'm going to now feature two apps. Those are ThingLink, and then the second app I'm going to talk about is Desmos. So ThingLink is a multimedia production-based app where you can create interactive content which you can use to engage students. ThingLink has really two ways that it can be used. It can be used as the teacher, where you create images or videos. You can create a ThingLink that you then embed and share with students. And that way is free for teachers to use. And then if you want students to interact or to create their own ThingLinks, then there is a cost with that. So what I'm going to show you today is more from the teacher perspective, which you can use creating a free account. So everything I'm going to go through today, you would have free access to, and you could use these links to share with your students. So again, it's really used as a way to create interactive content. ThingLink allows you to tag in images, 360-degree images and videos. It's a really great way to enhance infographics and maps, and allows you to create narrated 360-degree tours as well as many other forms of content. And I'm going to show you some of those examples with an overview video on the next slide. Again, students do not need an account to view ThingLinks that the teacher embeds or uses through the ThingLink website. So on this next slide, I'm going to show you two different examples. The first is an overview video that you can find when creating a ThingLink account. Everyone has access to this. And then the second example I'm going to show you is specific to mathematics, and it's a very small example, but just a nice way to get started and kind of thinking about how ThingLink works. So the first thing I'm going to show you all is a video. It's a little over a minute long, but it's a really nice way to capture the different ways that ThingLink can be used. Okay, so I'll go back to my presentation. So again, what's really wonderful about ThingLink is that it allows you to tag in YouTube videos, any form of Google application, so Google Forms, Google Calendar, Google Docs and slides. It allows you to provide links to maybe a distance learner, especially right now with having many students in a virtual space. You can create a tour of your classroom. There's many ways that ThingLink can be used, and various ways that you can create content for your students. So the next example I want to show you is a very basic example, and this is specific to mathematics. So this was a project on quadratic equations that I built for this to work with my high school students specifically. And so the goal for the students in this specific space was to act as photographers, in which they were going to capture photos of quadratic equations in the real world to submit to the Bridges conference that combines both math and art. And so what's really nice about ThingLink is that it provides a space for me to put all of the information together as a reference for my students when working on a project. So for example, when I shared this link with students, not only do they get the link to the overview of what this conference is about, but they can also click on these various links to find out more information about their project. So for example, when I click here, this link would then lead me to the conference, the Bridges Conference information website, so they could find out any information about this specific conference. I can include a link to a YouTube video. This video, when I click here, directly takes me to YouTube, which then allows my students to watch an overview of different examples of this project that have been submitted to this conference. I can link to Desmos, which I'm going to show in just a few moments as an app, but I'll show you now. This allowed my students to see examples of the ways they would embed various photos that they take and capture in and around their real world experience that has a quadratic equation visible within, or a parabola shape that's visible to them in their real world. I can also link to, for example, here, Google Docs, which align to the rubric that I was asking my students to look at when preparing their projects. So this is a nice, it's a very simple example, but it's one way to show how ThingLink can be used just to gather all the information for a project, or can become, as large as creating a tour of a space, as you saw in the video. Okay, so why ThingLink? ThingLink motivates students to start the learning process, and students can are active social learners. So they have that space to really click on the different links, maybe look at a video if that's the way they maybe understand the material better, or look at a Google Doc, whatever it may be. ThingLink allows students to develop a more sophisticated understanding of content. It can provide scaffolding to help make it easier for students to understand concepts, and ThingLink provides space for students to demonstrate their understanding. Again, with the upgraded account, students can actually create their own ThingLinks based off, whatever the material or content is that you're wanting them to look at. ThingLink allows students to learn outside the classroom and can provide a bridge between school and everyday life experiences. Okay, the next app I'd like to talk about is Desmos. So Desmos is one of my favorites. I use this quite often. And Desmos essentially is a free application that students can use as a calculator and teachers can use as curriculum and a variety of assignments that can be used in your classroom. So what's really, really wonderful about Desmos is graphing calculators are very expensive. And so when you click on the Desmos, just desmos.com, this is the screen that comes up. And so if you are a student, you can click right here, just graphing calculator, and you have access to a free graphing calculator. And I'll show some examples of how this can be used in just a few minutes. As a teacher, you can use this in your classroom. This also, you can link your assignments and activities to Google Classroom as well. So as a teacher, you can find interactive and creative activities. I'll show you some of those in just a moment. And if you're a student, you can give a student the link or a code to join your classroom so that they can interact with students both in their classroom or students outside of the classroom. So the nice thing about Desmos is that not only is it free and it provides free calculators for students, It's also an interactive, it has interactive activities and curriculum. Students can work with other students both virtually or in the same classroom. So for example, just this past year when I was working in a high school classroom, I had students who were virtual and I had students who were in my classroom all at the same time. And so Desmos allowed us to all work together. Both my students who were virtual could interact with my students who were in my classroom and vice versa. Additionally, you can save the content for future reference, and Desmos links can be embedded into other applications, just as you saw in ThingLink. All right, next I'd like to show you just two simple examples of how Desmos can be used for basic graphing. These are two different projects I worked on with my students. So the first one was a piecewise function project where the students were creating a roller coaster based off the different functions that they were learning in my classroom. You can just click and type and you can add to the function. These are functions that I typed in, but again, you can just go in and add them as you work. You can also add in tables, you can add in images, and you can add in expressions as you graph. You can zoom in and zoom out. The second example that I'd like to show, this really related to the project that I showed in ThingLink, was a space with my students prior to ever starting that project, having an opportunity to explore quadratic functions. So this is actually a space on Desmos that I set up for my students and then shared with them to explore the concept of quadratic functions. So what's really nice about this is that students, I had a separate document where my students were working and answering questions based off what they were observing in Desmos. And there were sliders that allowed my students to move the functions around, type in various points so that they could try to determine what a quadratic function was and make sense of these different forms of quadratic functions when they were beginning to learn about this project. Okay, and then the last part I want to show you with Desmos is the interactive activities. So it can be used as just a calculator, but it can also be a place where you create activities for your students. So this is a simple example that shows how students can use, it will load. Let's see. All right, where students can sort cards and interact with other students in the class. So what I did is I posted this link for my students and they were able to go in and move these cards around and try to sort these. So this was an independent activity that the students worked on, but then I could share it on the smartboard and we could go through it together as a class. I could also have my students answer questions about which student did something correctly, look at sample responses, and things like that. Students could also go in and sketch graphs and try to make sense of what they were looking at in regards to quadratics. The other way that Desmos can be used is more interactively. So what I mean by that is students they log on with a link and then they're partnered with other students in the class and they actually work back and forth so they can write comments, they can interact with the graphs and move them around just based on what type of activity I want them to interact with that day. And lastly, so why Desmos? Desmos allows students to explore mathematical concepts, again, through a free application, which is really important. Again, graphing calculators are very expensive, and this is a free way for many students to have access to a calculator. And Desmos provides students an opportunity to collaborate with other peers that are both in their classroom and virtual. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and pass this on to Kim.
All right, so I'm hoping that it will share. Let's see. I want to do that one. Okay, so I am talking to you today about a couple things that I love and that usually, while I can be super professional, as Samantha, who's a former student of ours, a graduate of our program, I'm awfully silly because I taught middle school for years, and so it worked real well with my personality. So what I'm going to share today with you is Puppet Pals and how to do screen recordings. I'd made a screen recording because this is an iPad or an iOS device or an app, so I just thought it'd be easier. So please feel free to go get some popcorn, but this will actually be, well, it's
One
fun.
of my very favorite storytelling apps is called Puppet Pals. It looks like this icon in the App Store, and you can download a free version or a $3.99 version, which is the one that I'm showing you today. I loved it so much that I bought it, which is very unusual for me, but promise have gotten at least $5.50 worth of laughs out of it since I've had it. So once you download it to your device, you have the opportunity to view your saved shows where you can get characters, and then once you start the actual movie making process. Now, saved shows is just, it's, well, very scholarly, something about donuts and George. Then you can, like, more characters is where it really makes a difference if you pay or not. They also have very confusing for dyslexic folks like myself situation there. Now, I have the director's pass, which means that I have the opportunity to use any of these packs. And in the packs, when you download them on the next little screen, you'll see why that's important. But if you are good with just a few, then just go with the free version to see if you like it. But here are your options. It's super easy to download. Let's say that we're going to do aviation. Click on that. You'll come right down here at the bottom right, and you'll click install. And there you have it. It's installed. All right, so we're going to hit back right here. And then we're going to go over here, and we're going to make our first movie. All right, so we click to start. Now, I have uploaded photos from my pictures on my device. If you have the free version, this is very limited. As a matter of fact, I'm not quite sure that you can upload pictures. So that was one of the reasons that I decided to purchase the paid version. Now, I have clearly, I love this guy. It's my nephew. He's adorable. But we're going to use our people, our presenters today. So we've got Dr. Brittain and Sully. We've got Dr. Heaton. We've got me and a unicorn, don't judge, and we have Dr. Allen. So I've selected up to 8 actors. Oops. One of the things about the paid version too is that you can select more actors. So I'm clicking next. And then you have the opportunity to choose from backdrops. Actually, let me go back real quick. If you scroll on up or down here, you can see where all of the packs, this is where those come in handy. You have different characters. So for example, if you're doing stuff with an elementary class that has to do with community workers, then you have these options: healthcare, police, fire. If you like fairy tales, who doesn't love fairy tales? Probably going to end up doing a fairy tale. Then you have all of these great characters in that pack. So that's where that stuff can really come in handy. Like I said, it's worth one Starbucks drink to have the laughs from this, and students love it. All right, so back to the backdrops. So we have where you can add a backdrop from your photos. So these are actual photos from my photo reel. This actually is a real place that I've been, International Youth Library. From the aviation pack, okay, these are the backgrounds that you can choose from. From the community, you have these, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where you have some more options as well. Okay, so once we have to select a backdrop, let's see, here's the ocean. Again, the ocean, the library, and let's do, I think that's Overlook. All right, so what you do then is you can pull your people off to the side. You'll see that you have these cords, and that's where all your backdrops are. So when you click those, then it drops in like that, okay? And one thing that is really, really cool here is that once you start hitting record, then you tell your story and you can drag people in like this, okay? So I'm going to make a little story, and I'm going to drop that in real quick.
Okay, you do not know tragedy until you listen to yourself do a video presentation on video. Okay, so here I go. So I did the video, and here's our quick little, just to show you how it all works. Now, I will say one thing to be aware of on this is you can pause during the recording, but if you stop, then it's done. So you kind of have to just make sure that you're planning ahead, I would say, especially with smaller students, but that's not true. I mean, I messed it up 4 times, so.
So there are these 4 really cool girls: Lisa, Tina, McKenzie, and Kim. Sully and Unicorn also pictured. Here, we're hanging out in a sunflower field randomly in Germany. It was like so fast time travel. And then boom, we're at the beach, one of our very favorite places to be. And you know who else loves the beach? This cool little guy right here. And he also likes to fly with his cartoon friend, like, hey, Roots, what's up? And we're just like, leave me alone. I'm standing here. And then the fairy godmother says, hey, just fly around.
So that's, you know, pretty much Puppet Pals. I will hopefully, not make you listen to that again. All right, let me go through here. So that you get the idea, and that was just to wrap up, but basically just to tell you, you know, where you can save it to your camera roll, and then, you know, go from there. Now, we're going to quick move over to screen recording, which you just saw, and I just demonstrated for you. And you can do this on your phone, or you can do it on your iPad. And I tell you what, this is great for the classroom, but it's also great if you're just trying to demonstrate something really quick as a support for teachers, or if your mom has posted something on Facebook she didn't mean to, then you can go and do a little tutorial about that real quick. So that's how that goes. What you'll need to do, though, I'm going to show you how to do it, but a couple things you want to make sure that when you pull down to your control, that you, here's what the screen recording looks like. When you click on it, you want to make sure that you turn it to microphone on, because the default is off. And that's one of the things, I've made a lot of silent videos. So just make sure that you get into the habit of doing that. All right, I'll just demonstrate that for you real quick and then pass it off to Tina.
One of the game changers for me as far as using iOS devices was Assistive Touch, and I'm going to show you how that works. So you'll see this dot that just popped up on my screen is actually for people that have some accessibility challenges, but it also doubles as a laser pointer for people's eyes to follow what you're talking about on the screen if you're demonstrating. So I'm going to go here to Settings, and I'm going to click on it. Then I'm going to scroll down to Accessibility, and I'm going to click on that. And then I am going to scroll down to the bottom where it says Accessibility Shortcut. And when you click here, you see all of the options that you have. Now, this is really great for you to explore for students or users that might have some challenges with dyslexia, because it has some color options. People who have tired eyes, trigger migraines, you know, you can do a lot of stuff right here. But we're going to just talk about Assistive Touch. So you'll notice that that is clicked for me already. So what that does is it gives you the option when you triple click the home button, that's how old school this iPad is, for 11 or later or a newer Pro, then you can also do that with the volume button on the side. What you can do with that then is you come back over and you can hit your home button, and then as you demonstrate, you can do whatever you need to. Now, a quick way to access that is if you have it in your control center, which is when you're pulling down, you'll see this button right here is the Assistive Touch, and I have that in the control center. How you set up your control center is you go back to Settings. From there, you're going to click on Control Center, and you'll see all of the apps that I have, the shortcuts here.
Oh, I meant to pause and not go
One
any further.
of the game changer.
Oh man, so note to self, you can't pause any video here. I was going to make sure that you knew that the screen recording is the round button that you need to make sure that you push to go along with the Assistive Touch. The screen recording and then the Assistive Touch really work together really well. All right, I think that's about where we're at.
Where you can put it back. So I'm going to add it back. You'll see now it's gone from here. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to put that shortcut on your control center, and then you can present with a screen voiceover really easy.
Okay, so really, I would encourage you all to just play around with that, because it really is a very easy way to do quick supporting roles as media specialists in my case, or if you're a technology integration specialist as well. All right, Tina, we're going to flip it over to you.
All right, so I think we have about 3 minutes left, but I can do that. Let's see, I want, let me make sure I got the right screen here. All right, do you all see the, yes, okay. So I'm gonna talk about 2 apps real quick, Flipgrid and Padlet. Flipgrid is a video discussion starter. I use it embedded into Blackboard. Their website says that you can embed it into any LMS, or you can embed it into a website, or you can use it directly from the Flipgrid website itself. It is free, so that's definitely a plus. So this is what the site looks like when you go to it. If the students, when you create one for your students, you'll give them a code, and they'll enter that code to get into the site that's created for their class. As an educator, you will log in, and I have mine all set up to log in with a Microsoft account, because all of our students have Microsoft accounts, and that way I can set it up so that only a Microsoft account can be can log into them. I want to show you this one real quick. One thing I'll point out, you'll notice some of these have this little blue symbol. That means they have a co-pilot. And what that is this is one that I created for a class, and then I have a adjunct who's teaching that class now. So I still maintain the Flipgrid so that we can just copy the same one over and over and over. But she's listed as a co-pilot so that she can grade from within the Flipgrid. So you'll see here at the top of the screen is the code that I give the students. I can also get a direct link to it, and you can also, no, not there. But anyway, you'll see in this one, there are 4 topics. I use it a lot for introductions, and I'll just show you. It has some instructions for the students. It has a little snippet that is built into Flipgrid that you can change and select the ones that you would like to use. You can also create your own. And you'll see then each student then has recorded their introductory response. Students can also go in and reply to each other. So that's nice. I really like it as an online teacher, because it gives me the opportunity to feel like I'm in the classroom with the students. I can see them and I can hear their voice, and it helps me feel like I know them a little better. On this particular one, the test blueprint, you'll see that what I have here is a video that I recorded, and these are their instructions for what they need to do in this particular assignment. And this one, they're responding to this question that I have typed here. So it's just a checkup of what they know and what they've learned from the particular module. And then each student records their response. They can reply to each other. I can reply to them. You can set it up so that there are rubrics, and you can grade them. It doesn't integrate into the learning management system gradebook, but it does. I got to get back to my, okay. It does grade within the Flipgrid site, and then you can just transfer your grades over into your learning management grade book. The great thing about it is it's free. As far as I know, there are no limits to what you can do in it. All the features are available. This just shows what it looks like when it's embedded into Blackboard. Students will log in, and once they log in, they can see the same thing that I was seeing in the website earlier. If this is on the iPad, so they can enter their join code, and then once they enter the join code, it shows up in recents, and they can go into it, and you'll see it looks almost exactly the same here as it did on the website earlier. If there's more than one topic, like the test blueprint had several topics in the CI 515 class, they can switch topics here. The other one that I wanted to share is Padlet. Padlet is described as an online notice board where students can post notes, or the teacher can post notes to share with the class. The notes can contain links, videos, images, and document files. You can have up to 5 boards for free, but for more than that, you have to have a paid subscription. This is what it looks like in Blackboard. You'll see this is a particular assignment where they're sharing resources for English language learners. And so each person has posted a link to a website. They have a description of the website, and then down at the bottom, which you can't see in this particular picture, there is the actual link where other students could click on that link and go to that site to get the information. On the iPad, it looks like this, which looks exactly like what it looks like on the website, the Padlet website. And so students can go in here and they can select whichever board they're needing to use, and add their notes to the site as well. So like we mentioned earlier, or like Lisa mentioned, you can get access to all of our apps that we've talked about, plus more. And this is the QR code that she showed at the beginning. Lisa, do you want to add anything to that?
If anyone has any questions, to please get in touch with us. If anyone wants to pop an app that they want to share in the chat real quickly before making your departure, we would love to see ideas that people have, additional favorites that people want to mention. So thank you all for being here today.
I would also just like to say thank you so much for attending a virtual conference. I know that we're all kind of screen giddy, but we really look forward to seeing you at the state conference, hopefully next year in person. And if you have any questions or you need any help, technology support for you yourself or your teachers, please reach out to Dr. Heaton, Dr. McKenzie, or Dr. Brittain, myself, or Dr. Allen, and we'd be happy to do whatever we can to support you.